Ever stop and really think about the food you're eating? I mean, not just how it tastes, but how it feels? Let's get into that.
So here's a question for you. You're eating a steak, right? And it has that amazing, satisfying tear to it. It shreds along this really clear grain. But then, maybe you try something like Korean gopchang, or, any kind of tripe or intestine, and it's a totally different universe. It's chewy, it's bouncy, and there's no grain whatsoever. Now, they're both meat, they're both muscle, so why the huge difference?
You know that grain I'm talking about? Think about the classic cuts of meat. A big, juicy steak from the loin, or maybe a slow-cooked beef neck. Even a rack of ribs. They all have it. It's because their muscle fibers are all lined up, kind of like a bundle of straws. So when you cut it or chew it, it tears really neatly right along that one direction. It's also exactly why those little stringy bits get stuck in your teeth. Super frustrating, right?
Okay, now let's flip that. Let's talk about intestines. When you eat them, there's zero shredding. Instead, you get this really incredible, springy chewiness. Texturally, it's a completely smooth ride. And it doesn't get caught in your teeth because it's missing that fibrous one-way grain. It's still muscle, for sure, but it behaves in a fundamentally different way. And that difference, that's the key to this whole thing. The reason for this whole texture mystery, well, it really boils down to two main families of muscle. And these exist in the body of any animal, including our own. It's all about where that muscle is and what its job is supposed to be.
So the first way we sort them is pretty simple. On one side, you've got skeletal muscle. And the name basically says it all. Skeletal just means it's related to the bones. These are the muscles attached to our skeleton that let us walk and lift and, move around. And crucially, they're voluntary. We decide to use them. Your steak, that's skeletal muscle. Then on the other side, you have visceral muscle. Viscera is just a fancy word for organs. These muscles make up our internal organs, the stomach, and yep, you guessed it, the intestines. And these are involuntary. You don't have to think about digesting your food, it just happens. They just work all on their own.
Okay, so we've got where they are and how we control them, but that doesn't really explain the texture, does it? The shred versus the chew. To understand that, we have to zoom in way closer and look at the microscopic structure of the muscle fibers themselves.
Skeletal muscles have another name, striated muscle. And if you put them under a microscope, you'd literally see stripes or striations. These lines show up because all the little muscle fibers are perfectly lined up in this super regular pattern. This structure is what gives meat its grain. And because they're all lined up like that, they can only pull powerfully in one direction, which is, perfect for moving a joint. And that's exactly the tearing feeling you get with a piece of steak.
Now, visceral muscles, like your intestines, they're called smooth muscle. And again, it's the perfect name. No stripes, no striations. Why? Because their fibers are arranged totally irregularly, not in some neat parallel bundle. This lets them contract in a completely different way. Not one big pull, but this slow, squeezing, kind of wiggling motion. Just think about how intestines have to push food along. It's that exact motion that gives them that signature resilient, chewy texture when you cook them.
So let's just pull that all together. We basically have three different ways of talking about the same two kinds of muscle. A steak is a skeletal muscle because it's on a bone, it's a voluntary muscle because we choose to move it, and it's a striated muscle because it's got that striped grain. Intestines, on the other hand, are a visceral muscle because they're an organ, they're involuntary because they work on their own, and they're smooth muscle because they have no grain. Makes sense, right?
Okay, so the rules seem pretty straightforward. Skeletal, striated, voluntary, they all go together. And visceral, smooth, involuntary, they go together. But biology loves to break the rules, and there's a huge one beating in your chest as we speak.
If you've ever had grilled heart skewers, they've got this really unique texture. It's chewy, but it's also firm and dense, kind of different from both steak and intestines. So based on that chewiness, you might think, okay, it's a smooth muscle like intestines. But is it?
And the answer is nope. The heart is in a class all by itself. It's the third and really special type of muscle in the body, cardiac muscle. It just doesn't fit into either of the two neat boxes we just made. And this just shows how brilliantly designed the heart is. Structurally,
If you look at it under a microscope, it's striated, just like your bicep. It has those stripes. But how it acts? It's like a visceral muscle. It's completely involuntary. And thank goodness for that. Can you imagine if you had to consciously remember to make your heart beat? It'd be a huge problem if you could just decide to stop your heart because you were feeling a bit lazy. So cardiac muscle is this perfect hybrid, taking the powerful, striped structure of skeletal muscle and combining it with the tireless, automatic control of visceral muscle.
But the heart isn't the only rule breaker. There is one more muscular marvel that we use every single day, and it might just be the most fascinating one of all. The tongue.
So, what's the deal with the tongue? We can all move it whenever we want. You're doing it right now just by listening. So based on our rules, that should mean it's a skeletal muscle. But it's also a huge part of eating, which might make you think of the smooth muscles. So, which one is it?
Well, it is in fact a skeletal muscle, but it is totally unlike any other skeletal muscle in your body. See, while your bicep has fibers running in one direction to pull your arm one way, the tongue's muscle fibers are intricately interwoven, running in all sorts of directions. This wild structure is what allows it to move with such incredible freedom, up, down, side to side, and even change its own shape. It's quite possibly the most precisely controlled muscle we have. It masterfully darts around in your mouth, pushing food around while somehow expertly avoiding your teeth, and it makes all those tiny, microscopic adjustments needed to form the precise sounds of speech. It's amazing.
This incredible agility and precision, all born from its unique interwoven structure, is actually why there's an old saying, like a tongue in the mouth. It's used to describe someone who works quietly, incredibly efficiently, and with a skill that often goes completely unnoticed. It's just a perfect description of this muscular masterpiece.
So let's just boil it all down. It really all comes back to a pretty simple framework. On one side, you have your skeletal or striated muscle. It's voluntary, it has a striped grain, and that gives us that shreddable texture in cuts like steak and ribs. On the other side, you have visceral or smooth muscle. It's involuntary, it has no grain, and it gives us that smooth, chewy texture you find in intestines. And then you have these brilliant exceptions like the heart and tongue, which just bend the rules to do their own unique, vital jobs.
And that brings us to a final thought. The tongue is classified as a skeletal muscle, but it has no bones to attach to. It's an anatomical marvel that kind of breaks the very definition of skeletal. It's the perfect reminder that the body doesn't always stick to its own rules. It engineers these incredible, unique solutions for really complex problems. It just makes you wonder, right? What other hidden marvels are right there inside our own bodies, just waiting for us to understand them?